Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. It's Tom Dutta. I am your host, and I'm excited. I have a guest in the green room who's going to knock your socks off. There is a incredible story that she has to tell, and I think she connects on many threads to my life and my story. First of all, I want to tell you we're live streaming. It's the next generation of broadcasting. This is a podcast, but you're seeing us live across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. What I want you to do is smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on YouTube, and that's going to get you to receive the production when it comes out. Also, it helps the show. It helps us get more ratings for the show and honor our guests' episode when it comes out. What I also wanted to let you know is that this is a live taping. The feed will have the show on it as it is in its raw form. That'll be left there, so you can go back and watch it if you're interested to do that right away. We'll pull that off once we've produced the podcast, which will be released across an international podcast network. And we're creating a YouTube premiere video, and that'll go up and be released as well at the same time. So we're really excited. If you are on, you can go into the chat box and you can communicate with the host. And I'll put your comments on the screen so that my guests can see them. Let me tell you a bit about who I have in the green room ready to come out. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Lowrey Gallowitz. She is career Air Force veteran, served as public affairs officer and a nurse, has a master's degree in nursing and political science. That's her practice. That frames her practice and perspectives in her work. It was her life's calling to design and lead a never-done-before military outreach program in Ohio in response to the 9/11 or 9/11 to educate and engage civilians and support the troops and their families. Now, she has written a book. We're going to hear about that. It's pretty remarkable what she did with that calling related to 911. While not serving in uniform, she's established and managed Buckeye sports and orthopedic specialists, was a president of the Pickerington Area Chamber of Commerce. She's firsthand experience hiring veterans, owner of Vanguard Veterans. She equips civilians to become veteran champions as the veteran hiring concierge. I love this. I've actually seen some of her work on LinkedIn pop up. It's pretty cool. There's a quote, military ministry builder and fallen comrades ceremony producer. We'll get her talking about that stuff in a bit. She also coaches volunteers how to create military ministries, and more on that in a bit, and serves as the chair of Arizona's Governor's Veterans Service Advisory Commission. And so everybody, the highlight really is at the end of that bio. Her husband, Ed, is a retired career active duty soldier, 4 combat tours together, 6 sons, 1 daughter, 3 grandchildren. I mean, this lady has done a lot in her life, and I can't wait to get to the real backstory and the incredible story. So let's bring on to the show, Kathy Gallowitz. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's so awesome. And I'm just going to be transparent as I am. We had a near miss. I had to reschedule for various reasons. And I had a chance to really learn more about your story and there's some stuff going on in the background there. So let's just have some fun with that. I see there's a little fuzzy bird up. Tell us about what that is.
Well, actually, that's my husband's. My husband is a lot like me, but I call him the version of me on steroids. I thought I was patriotic. Man, he is super patriotic. I thought I was outgoing. He is incredibly outgoing. So this was really his eagle. I think that pillow is mine. My son made that for me, my oldest son. But that eagle's just a plaster one. It was part of his eagle collection. I was like, oh, Ed, this will be a great background for interviews or Zoom calls or whatever. So that's all I know about it. It's not really mine. It's his.
Well, I love it. And my brain is actually, my brain actually goes from all the quadrants. It's just wired so strange. And just to warn you, I laugh at things I'm not supposed to. I don't laugh very well. These muscles, they hurt when I do laugh. So I have this dark sense of humor. But, I was thinking back to this when I grew up as a kid. My father, who we'll talk about him too, he was a military commanding officer in the British and then Canadian forces. We used to watch MASH all the time. And of course, anybody knows the great show MASH. And so when I first saw your background, I saw that file cabinet. It reminded me of Colonel Potter's office a little bit.
You're funny. You're funny.
Remember every time Klinger came in and he wanted to have a section 8, he went and got his file out. And when you talked about recruiting, I was thinking, there are files in there too. So.
Yeah, that's my brain storage. I'm kind of a pack rat. It's an essential component for me,
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'll trade my little secrets. They say in your podcast studio, always have something represent your character. You've got some great things there. You can see behind me, there's a replica of a real brain. And many of my followers know I had a brain injury in 2018.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And play a little guitar, and escape into that. But the biggest part about my studio here is all the great books that my guests have written. And I'm always honored when they sign them and they give them to me.
Oh, okay.
And I think what I'll be doing is creating a time capsule. But,
I'll get you one of my books. I'd love to do that for you. Just send me your address.
I will. And you know what? Because we're international, your book would have landed in Canada. I'll take it to a special place here that has a little bit of a military connection and take a photograph with it. How's that?
Thank you. I'd love that. Appreciate that, Tom.
All right. Well, Kathy, you were telling me something just offline. There's a very special, something big happening August 6th. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. My dad, Captain Ralph Leon Spaulding, is turning 90 tomorrow. He lives in the greater Northwest. Yes.
All right. That is fantastic.
Thank
so
you.
Exciting. So 90 years old. So why don't we do this? I would love to, I'm going to accelerate and release this show, which I never do, but in honor of the birthday and everything you stand for, we'll get this out tomorrow and I'll make sure you get all that. So we'll dedicate the show to that birthday as well. How's that?
I'm so grateful. That is just so wonderful. I really appreciate you speeding it up and honoring my dad in that way, because he did teach me to love my country, to love military service, and to believe in myself. So thank you, Tom.
Oh, that's awesome. Right, so everybody, the show's about the hero's journey narrative. And I always poke our guests before they come on and say, look, check your ego. I want to hear about the whole story. What was the beginning? How did you arrive there? And let's not hear just about all the success, but there's always the ups and downs. And so Kathy wrote me some notes here, and I'm just going to read a couple small things here. And this is the one that I'm so proud of in the service part, in response to 911. As a military officer, I designed and led a new statewide outreach program to engage civilians. And again, I mentioned that up front before Kathy came on. We'll get into that next. But I said, so, where were the tragedies, or where were the challenges, getting to that point? And here's a few things that you wrote to me, Kathy. I changed high schools middle of my junior year in high school after living somewhere for 7 years. And even I had known and moving to Keflavik, Iceland to graduate from high school. That shaped part of your life a ton. Parents, I'm just going to read a few of these and we're going to get into just having a discussion. The parents were alcoholics, but not abusive. Now, my father was an alcoholic. He wasn't in the Army, but the same background. So being raised an Army brat, that caught my attention. Dad was career military, strict, distant. My mom's alcoholism and suffering wounded me more, but certainly my father's emotional distance shaped me. Married an orthopedic surgeon who was abusive and a narcissist. Yikes. Okay, we'll have to explore that. Son survived leukemia. Oh, my goodness. Other son recently had stillborn baby. The biggest influence on me was growing up as a child of an active duty Navy guy. Before the age of 35, I lived in at least 20 different communities. The reason I came out pretty whole from my marriage was that I went into it strong and resilient from all the moving I'd done. Oh my goodness. Well, this is where you get to be vulnerable. And I know in the Army, like, we got to be out there on this. My dad, I was born into this world, Kathy, with no neurons that had any, or neurons that were empty.
Oh.
And taught in the military way. I mean, I was born on a military base, and your brain doesn't know any difference, but my brain was wired to don't cry, be the best. It's not okay to say you're okay and all that stuff. So talk about some of these things here. I mean, you're somebody who's remarkably different, because I see somebody who's come out of all those beginnings and it shaped you, but you found resilience and positivity. Tell us more.
Ooh, that's a big question. I'm not even really sure where to start. But first of all, I want to say that vulnerability is not an easy thing for a lot of people, let alone military people. Okay, and so when I was invited to come speak with you, I was like, wow, this is going to be different. Because honestly, I don't share the things that you just read publicly, honestly. But
okay, everybody, come back and watch this, because this is a teaching moment. This is actually why you're on the show and why I love your story and you, because it is hard, but that hard is where we grow, and so I want to honor that. Keep going.
Well, I've certainly spent time in my life reflecting about who I am and what I want and why I am the way I am. And, we all experience pain and trauma and suffering, or at least as I understand it, about 2/3 of us do. And, I think I've had my fair share. But, the title of your podcast was to look behind the mask of an Army brat. Well, buddy, I'm not an Army brat. I'm a Navy brat, just for clarification. But
that was my Freudian slip. I'm half blind here.
It's
the
all
Navy,
good.
but yeah.
But all kidding aside, we do have a sort of an inherent rivalry between the Army and the Navy, and so I am a Navy brat.
Yeah, I've seen those football games.
Yeah. So I don't know where should I go. I do believe that pain and tragedy shapes us, and I also believe that life experience shaped us. And I think honestly, as a young kid, when I went into Girl Scouting shaped me immeasurably about my desire. Well, so I learned about civic contribution at the age of 12, how important that was. Yeah. I had my first leadership opportunity at the age of 12. The adult leader came to me and said, "Hey, would you like to be the girl leader?" And I was like, "Well, yes." I don't know what that means, but that launched me. And then, oh, by the way, my love of the great outdoors, just but civic mindedness and leadership propensity. How about that? I've been on both of those journeys since age 12, since I can remember.
Yeah.
And then the tough part with my mom's alcoholism, I think I kind of lost my childhood.
Yeah.
Because I really took care of her emotionally. Now, she took great care of me physically and pushed me into all kinds of activities and kind of lived her life vicariously through me.
Yeah.
But it just broke my heart to see her suffer.
Was it, do you mind if I just ask, was it genetic, or was she always an alcoholic, or how did that manifest?
I will say that alcoholism runs in my family. But she was doing pretty well up until a point in her life, and then she didn't do so well.
Yeah. Was she working out of the home, or was
okay, so here we are in a military family. You can relate to this. She was a proud military spouse. She loved wearing my father's rank. She loved all the social activities, and she was a beauty. I mean, her shoes always matched her purse, and she had a beautiful figure, and her hair was always done. This is back in the day when women went to the beauty salon, once a week or whatever to get the poof, But she was not very assertive. She grew up with a very controlling mother, married a strict, kind of emotionally distant only child pilot and engineer.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they struggled in their marriage.
Yeah.
And so and he did not want her to work.
Yeah.
He wanted her to be home and raise the kiddos. There were 4 of us.
Yeah.
And she wanted some separate identity, and she wanted to work, and that's not what my dad wanted. So she lost her identity, and so her suffering, frankly, I'll just say it, her suffering taught me, frankly, that I didn't want to ever be in a position where I had to totally rely on a man for my financial well-being. Number 1.
Yes.
Number 2, I really wanted to have a voice and to be independent. And I guess those are the 2 big things. And I think beyond the Girl Scouting thing, but interpersonally, my service to my mother
Yeah.
And that's the best way I know how to frame it. Me taking care of her became ingrained in my DNA that it's kind of my job to
Yep.
serve and to take care of other people. And I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and so associated with that, as I understand it, is you have a rescuing tendency,
Yeah.
right? So that's what happened when I
Yeah.
got married. I had a rescuing tendency, and it didn't work out. It was miserable. It was miserable.
That's why I like sharing the full story, everybody, because there's so many teaching moments. Kathy, I'm just going to riff on that and jump in.
Please.
Speaking of your mom and beauties, let's see how you in uniform, any comparisons to your mom. I wish I had a picture of her. That's a pretty amazing shot, everybody. There's the server, and it'd be really fun if I produced the show. If you had a picture of your mom, send it and put it side by side. But anyway, I want to show you something. I'm just going to pick it up here. All right, this is my favorite little toy. This is an actual replica of a human brain. Now, everybody, if you've seen me play with this before on the show, I had a brain injury in 2018, as you know, and I've been recovering from it. And it almost ended my life. It's been crazy, and I slipped into mental illness with depression and suicidal ideation, all that. But I was a fully functioning human being. But the unintended consequence through that, Kathy, and I'm actually doing some things with it in my professional work, was I started having these thoughts about my own childhood development, because through my life, I've, like your story, and we'll hear a lot more, I lived a life as a leader. I went into business and became a CEO at a young age of 31. But I had these voices in my head all the time, and I looked at the world when there were stressors. I looked at the world, and my brain seemed to be telling me that what was going on out there was not really the truth. It was something that was looking like danger all the time. And it happened a lot when I was dealing with difficult people, or people who raised the tone of their voice, or I had a board member and sometimes bosses who would be very arrogant, but I would see them as just mean and melt into this puddle. So anyway, what am I talking about with this? There's research that shows, neuroscience research that shows that the parts of the brain that basically are developed to that's called our stress system, the stress management system. There's things like the amygdala and other complicated parts of the brain. When we're children and we're exposed to what's called childhood maltreatment, which comes in different forms. So for me, it was physical abuse from my dad when he was drinking, but it's also mental. So one of the things you said, which was interesting to me, and I connect, is my dad was distant. He was never there. My dad was strict. But that can be, depending on how you're nurtured, it can be a form of maltreatment, where it's like abandonment, all those types of things. It's a mental form of maltreatment. Now, they also say that if you observe it around you consistently, so if you hear a lot of kids who have single parents, there's addicted to cocaine and other things, or alcoholism. I have one friend who came on my show who said he found his mother dead in his living room when he was in his teenage years, and the dad beat her up all the time.
Oh my gosh.
So what the research shows, and it's actually pretty bulletproof, is that those parts of the brain that run the stress management system, so your fight or flight response, the sympathetic nervous system, etc., don't develop effectively, and it manifests and carries into our adulthood. And so I'm pursuing that now in a deeper way. But what fascinates me about you, and I'll give it back to you to talk just a little bit more about some of these things, is I went into the real world and I struggled more than I understand you did, in these ways, that I was running away from things in my career. My first marriage didn't work, and there were these things that were going on. So for some reason, my brain didn't develop to see and manage stress the right way. The good news is, through cognitive behavioral therapy and learning how to develop your thoughts, neuroplasticity, where you can change the brain, you can actually live healthy. I didn't know that until the last few years. What I'm interested in is going back to your story. We talked about your mom and dad. They say that if somewhere in the home or somewhere in your life, there's people who can provide that nurturing, that positivity. And I think that's really what I got out of your story that you wrote me, is you did have these alcoholic parents, and we love our parents, right? They do the best with what they have. However, you said they in different ways, they cared for you, right? They looked after you.
Absolutely. my mother was very nurturing to me. She was unhappy and she was drunk quite a bit. But prior to that, in the younger ages, I don't know, I want to say maybe up to 12, I'll just pick that age. She was very nurturing when she was happier. My father, he was a good standard setter kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I don't know, early on, I learned like, I'm going to not only meet expectations, but I'm going to beat the expectations. And I'm going to be the golden child. I just assumed that role, right, in my family.
Were you the eldest?
I was number 2
Okay.
out of 4, but my older brother chose to kind of withdraw. He was much more of an introvert.
Yeah.
And I've never been really an introvert. But so my father, who turns 90 tomorrow, how about that?
Oh my goodness. Let's give him a hand.
My mom died at age 52, unfortunately, from lung cancer. That was very hard.
This for your father. I'm going to make that clear.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, we're having a big party for him. We're headed out here soon. But my father loved me. I know he loved me, and he was a happier guy at home when he was drinking. When he was sober, and he was not as happy. Now I want to give him credit. I think he's been sober now for like 40 years. I don't know. And throughout the years, he's gotten softer. But I still kind of, have some angst around him because he's not a super warm guy.
Yeah.
But there was no physical abuse. I wouldn't even say there's verbal abuse, but I would say it wasn't warm and comforting. But I did have that balance of a mother who loved me unconditionally. My dad loved me, but I felt the unconditional love from my mom.
Okay, what was that? Give me one thing that looked like paint a picture. What would she do that made you see that?
Well, she believed in me no matter what. Kathy, go do this. Kathy, try that. I'll take you there. Let's go do this. Or, I'll help you with that. And she was always at home, ready and eager to listen about my experiences and encourage me.
Yep.
When she was at her best.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we'll just wrap up on this segment. Everybody, what you've heard, these are real teaching moments. So Kathy, I honor you for sharing this. It is vulnerable. The thing is, I think in the military, and I'm not, first of all, thank you for your service to your country, your service to every country that's impacted by it,
there
including
you go. I love it.
In Canada here. And I'm again raised as a military brat. I was born on a base actually, and Mom couldn't even come to the birth, as you know how that works. So I it's like it's in my DNA. When I got into leadership, I have to just say that the comparison, I started struggling because I took the rules or the belief systems from my childhood that were put in me and used them in leadership. It didn't work because I was hard driving. I was always, the bar was here. And I'm a guy who naturally has a personality that is emotion based, as you've learned. And my wife is like you. She's not as emotion based, so you're more logic based from communicating with you, which is not a weakness. You
learn that in the military.
Yeah. So this is what happened to me is I went into business and I started getting 360 feedback on my performance reviews, especially my first CEO job. Things like feedback, you're grandstanding. It's all about you. It's about your agenda. And I denied it. And then I had a coach, and this happened in a room. She started giving me this feedback, and she said something, and I started welling up. I don't cry very well, but she started raising her voice and saying, "Tom, you're going to have to change if you." And I said, "Stop." I said, "Right now, you're like my dad." And I welled up. I got all emotional.
Yeah.
And so what it really was is that I think that my father, now my dad died in 18 unexpectedly from a heart attack, but he was 22 years in AA. I was not close to him. In fact, estranged until just before he died. I saw him, and Kathy, I said I'd get back together with him, but I didn't get that chance. Thank you. My dad's dad was an alcoholic, and he died in the home of alcohol. This is back in Fiji. My dad is, for example, how tough he was raised. He was pushed off a bridge to learn to swim.
Oh gosh. In
the military, and this is how my dad would treat us. I'll kick your ass kind of thing, and he'd yell at you and make you, clean the garage for 8 hours.
Not good.
This command and control style, but I'll just finish on this. I believe that my father, when he finally made peace with him, and I started studying mental health. My father had mental illness, and I believe that it was an addiction in his generational addiction, but he used alcohol to numb something else.
Yep.
what happened? What then? The worst place for him to be placed was the military, because it was the standards
The
are so high,
culture.
the pressure, the culture, and that combined, he never got help for the
Well,
underlying causes.
and I believe, back when my dad was on active duty, the culture of drinking was very different than it is now.
Yeah,
And so everybody met at the officers club, and there was all kinds of, happy hours, and that's just kind of the way it was. And
yeah,
so that I know that contributed to his and probably hers, but her unhappiness, I think the
yeah,
masking and the not knowing how to deal with life.
exactly.
Yeah.
I on the weekend we went and saw Top Gun, the Maverick, the next
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
and what an amazing film! But
Yeah.
now that talking to you, I remember when the officers club and the wives and all that there. I can just picture that. Right, what you said is so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna celebrate you now and turn the next chapter, which is you got something there to hold up. Hold up your book there for us. I'm gonna full screen you, and then read us out the title.
The title is Beyond Thank You for Your Service, the Veteran Champion Handbook for Civilians. There you go.
All right, now I'm going to set this up with so let's get into this. So everybody, the great thing that we've seen so far is Kathy has this backstory, and many children and youth have those stories, but through her adversity, she found resilience, and there were some factors in that. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to speak to parts of what you said, and I think that the most healthy behaviors that I acquired were to learn how to grieve, because we in our society don't understand loss. We're not taught how to deal with it, and we don't really fully appreciate the grieving process. Now, I was taught this by a colleague of mine named Deborah Grassman, who is an advanced practice nurse, who she and her team helped 10,000 veterans at their end of life experience at the Tampa VA.
Wow.
And so they started Opus Peace, a nonprofit, and coined the symptomology that they found, especially in combat veterans,
Yeah.
That were very restless. They found that those who had unmourned loss and unforgiven guilt and shame really had a much more difficult end of life experience. But I'm here to tell you, in life, if we don't mourn our losses and forgive ourselves and others, we have a much more restless life, right?
That's a teaching moment, everybody. Come back and listen to this part here. Grief, mourning, loss. You said you learned that. Was it in your work in the military? Is that what you're saying?
Well, actually, through the outreach program that we created in Ohio, it was the clergy outreach. I met a girl named Kathy who introduced me to Opus Peace. That's where I learned about the Fallen Comrade ceremony, but that's also where I had an opportunity to do some of my own internal work. And this, frankly, was probably at age 45, 7, 8, right? So it was well into my life, but I dug in and did some work. However, I will say that I don't have any problem crying. I cry at the movies. I cry when I feel strongly about something.
Yeah.
But when I was going through my horribly tumultuous divorce, 2.5 years to get the divorce settlement, 2.5 years in the legal system to suing for full custody, I got to tell you, it was tough, right? I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I'm glad I did, because I came out okay, if not better for it, because I was fundamentally owning my grief and doing something about it.
Yeah, thank you. And did you have children through that divorce?
Yes. So I have 3 amazing sons. And when you were talking earlier, honestly, I fear for their development as they have been exposed to narcissistic rage and narcissistic injury, right? And how they handle stress and how they learn to have strong relationships. 2 of them are married and have wonderful wives who are wonderful for them, and I just expect the best things for them. My other son's not quite yet found his partner.
Well, I honor, first of all, my 3 sons. I'm thinking about a TV show now.
Yeah.
But that's my story. I have 2 brothers.
Okay.
So let's just talk about that, because every time you say something, I riff in my mind here. So my younger brother, who I don't really see as much, but he's struggled with alcoholism, but he has Tourette's syndrome, if you know what that is.
Oh, I do actually.
And a bit of an ugly story, but there was a rifle in our home. So my dad
Ooh.
taught us how to shoot, and my dad was so ridiculous, and I think it was harmless. So he locked up the ammunition and the bolt for the rifle in the garage in a file cabinet, and then the rifle he left in the house. And actually, my younger brother would sleep with it and play with it. Well, one night, and this was when my parents split when I was 12 and kind of became homeless, but there was one night where
Wow.
there was an accident at the house. My younger brother had a friend over and put the bolt in, got some ammunition, and he was just playing around. He shot his friend in the back of the neck.
Oh,
And
Tom,
I
so
remember,
sorry.
thank you. I remember getting the
Gosh.
call, but what we think now is that the rage and alcoholism in my house triggered my brother's Tourette's. And why I say that is I was baptized Catholic. I'm Christian faith. I watch an online service right now until we can go in live. And my pastor actually is a young guy, and he had Tourette's, and he explained how that was
Oh,
triggered in his childhood.
wow.
So going back to your three boys, I want to give them a message that, guys, you're awesome, and there's hope. You get a train wreck life or like mine. Here's what I finally realized. You can't walk through life on your own. So I say, as a business executive, I had a coach and all these people around me. I think everybody should have a psychologist or a psychiatrist in their
Yes.
care team.
Yes.
You get a checkup from the neck up, and when you learn,
that's good. That's good.
when you learn what I learned and what you just said, Kathy, about the impact of grief and things, that's exactly it. And we don't know, but there's actually tools available that I learned where we have a choice. We can choose our thoughts. We can replace the meaning. We're the only species, not animals and plants can't do this, but we can change the meaning of a thought. So my father used to beat me and all do all those things. I used to hate him. I've actually, through neuroplasticity, which is just hacks using drills and doing repetitions, changed the meaning of that to the good things in my dad. And it's constant work. So that's the message I want to send to anyone who's gone through these.
I just want to say, Tom, I applaud what you're doing and your willingness to be so vulnerable. And my heart goes out to you for the trauma that you've experienced. I'm sorry you had to go through all that.
Thank you. Well, you know what they say, in every adversity there's a gift. Here's another story quickly, that when I had the brain injury, actually my doctor said, because I slipped into depression and we didn't know how bad it was, she said, get your, pardon my language, ass out there and do something physical or your brain's going to shrink. Oh. I applied to Costco and Starbucks. Now I'm a executive. I own my own company. I went from that to nothing, and I went and did a night. I never done it before, night stalking till midnight every night.
Wow.
I banged my body. It was hard. I wore a cross and I prayed all the time. But you know what?
Good
I got promoted 3 times. And the guy, here's what they said to me. Said, how do you work like that? You're so quiet, but you do the best. And I said, everything my father taught me when I was a kid: not put your hand out, be the best person in the room, stand out for what your greatness is. That's what got me through that time at Costco. And so despite how tough sometimes our parents' situations are, there's always good in it. So let's talk about the book, that program. So you launched this. Just tell us about that program. There's so much in that.
I want to kind of punctuate one message, and that is that I fundamentally believe that when children have one solid, loving parent, that will save them.
That's right.
And that's just really important for anybody who might be listening to this, experiencing some of the things I've experienced. Go get the checkup from the neck up and get grounded and get solid in your beliefs. Pray a lot, lean on God, and love those children all over the place, all the time, and help them get through life. Because if you're dealing with alcoholism or abuse or anything else, it's just really brutal.
Well, what a great message. And also just add to that just remember, we have to acknowledge that if we come from that maltreatment, we don't have what Kathy said is influencing us. We have underdeveloped brains that don't work the same way, but we can actually find ways. I want to just also say, in Ohio, I have a good friend who's a professor at a university there, John. And John, he said, Tom, he said, I interviewed him. He said, 50% of the kids coming through and he teaches at the university level, my classes are broken. They've got single parents. They've come through adversity. And I was thinking about the military and all those sad stories of the soldiers who don't come back and the families that are impacted. But you left us with a gift there. If there's a nurturing parent, and even outside, I would say, Kathy, if there's an aunt or uncle or
That's a good
somebody,
point. Right.
yeah, find that path. So I'm just going to read this again off my screen. In response to 9/11, you designed and led this statewide outreach program. Tell us about that more.
It all started when I was at the 121st Air Refueling Wing in Columbus, Ohio. I was building a mission-driven community relations program. So what that meant was that we were inviting employers out to take rides on the KC-135 aircraft and to get up close and personal with the airmen at that time at the base to help them understand, oh my goodness, the level of professionalism and can-do attitude, and to help them understand the capability of the Air Force by taking them up in this flight and really trying to educate them and inspire them to believe in their military talent and to want to support them in ways that weren't just, being compliant with the law, USERA, that mandated that they keep the job. And so it was really trying to keep the employer on our national security team.
Yeah.
So the Adjutant General, the commander of the Ohio National Guard at that time, was Major General Greg Waite. I call him the citizen mobilizer in my book. He was like, oh, this is good stuff. We need to do this statewide. So we built a team of about 4 people, and the cornerstone of it was employers. So as the veteran hiring concierge, I learned when I had my business and had firsthand experience hiring veterans, oh my gosh, the work ethic, the mission focus, you can just count on them. But so back to the program. So the cornerstone was employers, but then we reached out to healthcare providers, lawyers, educators, leaders of diverse communities, and clergy. We hosted events so they could meet soldiers and airmen. We took them to the different bases, gave them a ride in a helicopter, maybe a tank ride, maybe, kind of just expose them to all the equipment because that's fun.
Absolutely.
And we could get them out there, right? And then in some cases, we built military civilian coalitions because the events were to inspire them. And the coalitions were to engage them in ways that created mutually beneficial activities and services. So we had a coalition for healthcare providers, a coalition for clergy, and then we did something called the Employer Advisory Council with employers. And at that point, typically brought in the larger corporations to have them talk about their best practices. And so what did that do? It buoyed up the level of best practices, gave people fresh ideas, and really shaped the landscape for sure in Ohio about why is veteran talent valuable and what do we need to do to interview and retain them, and what does that look like from a military perspective and some of the military culture pieces. So I'll just keep talking.
Keep going.
In 2016. I retired, and it was just so heavy on my heart that there's so much work yet to be done. I mean, there are 40 to 45,000 nonprofits across the U.S. that do great things for military people.
How many? 45,000?
Yes. That's as I understand it, right? And some nonprofits are great, some nonprofits are not so great, but there's a sea of goodwill. General Dempsey, Joint Chiefs of Staff, used to call that, and there's certainly a sea of goodwill, but it's fragmented, it's not coordinated, it's sometimes not funded, and it's overwhelming for people who are getting out. DOD and the VA are trying, they're doing good work, but what really hit me was that there was nobody in America whose job it is to educate our citizenry about how to become veteran champions. And I saw firsthand when I was working.
I was just going to say, I see the Girl Scout coming to the rescue here.
Is that right?
I see you. I see Kathy coming to the rescue here. Let's fix
that's
it.
probably true. That's probably true.
Yeah.
At least I have big ideas and a passion that's got more need than I have energy. But
no, but you know what they say, that everything. I think Yanni, who's a performer, said everything's created twice in the world. One first in thought, second in the physical equivalent. So you had a thought and then you created. So keep telling it.
The thought is that our citizens have so much to offer. I saw firsthand the joy, the satisfaction, the enrichment that came for citizens
Yeah.
when they were doing good stuff for people who defend freedom and sacrifice so much for us. I mean, their joy is almost palpable. I mean, just see it all over their face, right? And
Yes.
people want to do more. People
Yes.
want to, but there's not, in essence, a process, a person, anything to help people with practical strategies. So the book features about 20 mostly Ohioans.
Show us again the book while you're doing that.
What'd you say?
Hold that book up again. Well, we didn't get the full shot. There it is. Everybody, we're talking to the author of Beyond. Thank you for your service. Keep going, Kathy. It's awesome.
And the essence of it is so that civilians can become veteran champions. And so these somewhat about 20 different civilians, people who have never put on the uniform, they give practical, easy to do tips on how to be a veteran champion. What is a veteran champion, you ask? It's someone who promotes quality of life, workforce, and community.
Yeah.
I contend that if you take the time as a neighbor and a community member to develop a relationship with someone who served,
I was getting so excited about what you're doing there. I was just giving all those people that applause.
Go ahead. You can do it again. I kind of missed it.
To all of the volunteers out there, there we have it. You want to know the other side of this, and this is a controversial angle, which I say it just to create controversy. Sure. Is that what really galls me is, and if you get me going to my soapbox, I'm probably going to upset some people, but I see the amount of money that's spent on the military. In fact, I see now a bill being passed. I'm just talking about America. Canada's got its issues to have so many billion because of what's going on in China and Taiwan. And then we look at 45,000 not-for-profits. I was the chair of the board for 10 years of a mental health not-for-profit. We couldn't get funding, but these people go out of their way and they raise funds to do the work that, quite frankly, I think there's not enough being done for the veterans that come back. We don't care for our veterans enough, and that's a big part of it.
So if I may, I think nationally we need two key initiatives. Number one, we need a PR campaign that talks about how military service shapes stronger employees and brings that to the civilian workplace.
I love it.
Okay, because there's tons of investment in our discipline, in our leadership, in our processes, in our problem solving, in our discipline. I mean, we learn through book knowledge and experiential knowledge. Oh, not to mention risk taking and being technologically savvy. A lot of that comes from the investment the country's made in us as soldiers, airmen, Marines, coasties, and guardians, right? Okay, and so that's the first realm. That's the first piece of it is how does military service, frankly, help our civilian workforce and why you should hire them, the value of the veteran. The second piece is to bust the myths and misconceptions that swirl around the heads of our veterans that do them a disservice. It's not true that they all have PTSD. About 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have PTSD. And what's also true is that even if you have PTSD, people can learn to manage their triggers and live full lives beyond it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And oh, by the way, people with PTSD are not necessarily more violent. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff like that really does our military people a disservice and hurts the post-military transition. So the PR campaign is the first one. The second overriding issue, I'm getting all worked up, is
I'm just you're doing great, and I'm building up things I want to say to you, but I don't want to stop you.
No, don't stop me yet. This is important. So we do not have, as a nation, a comprehensive, holistic post-military transition public policy. Okay, now I'm going to give the VA a shout out in general. I'm a patient there. My husband's a patient there with service-connected disabilities. I think they do great work. Super bureaucratic and frustrating, okay? And it takes somebody who's really pretty cognitively aware to try to even get through the system. But the point is that DOD and the VA is not as interoperable as it needs to be.
Yeah.
Okay? And we need to fund, coordinate, and communicate a policy that is effective and hopefully somewhat simple for our service members to use, that is underpinned, this is a key point,
Yep.
that is underpinned by civilian veteran champions, civilians who understand military culture, civilians who are committed to using their circle of influence, their special knowledge and attributes to do good for that community that provides us our freedom, right?
Exactly.
And so I think there's an initial stab being taken. There's some of that talk being happening in Congress about, how do we build support in the community post-military transition, and how does DoD and VA talk to each other better? But we have a long way to go. And again, the person in uniform is the one who, takes the hit, loses, because we don't have that. And we don't have a win-win because we are not completely leveraging their skill sets at the workplace. And we are not completely, frankly, leveraging their skill sets in the community. There is a research study, 2015, American Enterprise Institute, that said veterans are broke no more. Veterans are civic assets. They compared, 11 different criteria and compared, military or veterans to non-military counterparts, and found that in every category, military connected people, primarily those who had served, contribute more into society. So we need to get busy and figure out how to promote and sustain the win-win, so that citizens help veterans, and veterans in turn, are helping the citizens post-military service.
I think it's wonderful. Everybody, you've got to get the book. And I just want to say too, Kathy, that everybody, how authors' work gets known, and you need to not only get Kathy's book, read it, post a review on Amazon, Goodreads.com.
Thank you. That'd be great.
That's how people will know about the book and the work. So several things I wrote down here, if I can just riff with you for a minute, to honor what you said about not everybody has PTSD. Hey, listen, people watching my show, they know what I do, and being a business leader, I have PTSD. You know why? Because I can be sitting in a room and see somebody acting a certain way, and they appear to be my father being really cruel to me. PTSD is unresolved trauma that appears today. Yeah. So if you were in the military and you saw your friends, you saw your friends fall in a grenade and lose every part of his body, we're human beings. That is etched in our neurons, and we relive that. So, but you know why most people have this image of PTSD? And I'm going to just go there and be controversial again. When I grew up watching MASH, and my dad was in the Army as a commander, we didn't have social media. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have movies being made by Hollywood and all these about war. You look at, here's the thing, the brain takes everything it hears and stores it as truth. The only way we can overcome that and find that it's not truth is to use our rational or prefrontal cortex.
Well, and have other information presented to us. Exactly. That's why this PR campaign is so important.
Totally. So if I go and look at all the movies, even the one that galls me the most is some of the ones I've seen, even the one where Meryl Streep was in The Post, and it was all about the Vietnam War. I'm so sick and tired, and this is something going back to what you said about grief and shame. So here's the thing, and I always use my story to tell stories to get people to see my point. So I'm not regurgitating my story. I've learned to tell it, not for woe is me or anything, but for a point that if I grew up and in my home, there are 4 of my family members that would shame me for what I look like and things like that. So I went into the real world feeling shame about just who I was. If I went into the military to serve my country, and if the people up here are supposed to have my back, make political decisions that I don't get or that are wrong, it's false war, whatever this is, and I come back and all the people that are supposed to love and nurture me are shitting on me, saying, then that's not only is that
that's
shame,
okay.
and something that I've learned through my studying of brain science and when I went through my therapy for mental illness, is that the emotions, Kathy, of shame the emotions of shame and guilt sit side by side. Here's the difference. If I was invited to your birthday party and I missed it, I can feel guilty. If I feel guilty, my action would be this: I'll be embarrassed, but I'll call you and I'll say, hey, I'll buy you a coffee. Let's go and I'll celebrate later. And I'm over it. I take a better path. If I feel shame, I go to my cave. It could lead to ruminating, depression, anxiety. It could even lead to suicide. How many of these people coming back who are labeled and also made to feel, remember, if you're a vet, and I'm not a vet, but I come from a military family, if you come back from, doesn't matter what you do, and you hear enough times PTSD, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, your brain actually through neuroplasticity can teach itself to believe that. And so we need to, not only did what you said about the campaign and all this, but we really need to go back and think about the narrative that
well, and let me kind of clear up as I see the narrative, if I may. Okay, I believe what you were really speaking about was how we treated our Vietnam veterans and the shame that they probably carried with them for a long time. About 30% of Vietnam veterans have PTSD in their lifetime as compared to the 20%, because the environment and the narrative is so different now. Hallelujah, praise God. You know, people do say, thank you for your service. And people, I think, truly mean it. But the book is all about how do we go beyond that? And that verbal thank you and show of appreciation is really, really appreciated.
Absolutely.
But it's more than words. You know, actions, we need to act in ways that actually show our appreciation, that bring us, if you will, all the way home. And so the narrative is very different today. And yet I think because of the media sensationalizing stories, or at least being able to share kind of the dark side of stuff
exactly
that are associated with veterans, that it's easy for people to get the wrong impression. And I mean, there are so many wonderfully resilient, high functioning leaders and followers who have the greatest character and, you know, want nothing more than to find their next mission and purpose. And so that's why employment is so important. That's why I'm so committed to helping employers find, hire, and keep veteran talent, because it's what's in their best interest. And oh, by the way, it's in our service members' best interest. And why military ministries are so important. A military ministry is a practical place to promote encouragement, friendship, and a sense of belonging, and a place to promote spiritual resiliency. Now, you don't have to be a nurse. That's my first square. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be a veteran necessarily to do this work. But, you know, we need volunteers who will step out and say, yeah, I'm going to bring military connected people together, those who served and their families, or those who love them. Let's bring them together inside of our place of worship. I'm Christian, so that's where I do it. Doesn't have to be done in a Christian organization, but it's about bringing people together, finding out what their needs are. It's leadership 101. It's, hey, I care about you. Let me learn about you. How can we help you? What can you do to be a part of the solution? And then what I've seen brings tears to my eyes through my military ministry called Vet Connect. The way that our other members have supported each other. I'm not a combat veteran, but my husband is. There's other people in the group that are, and the way they have supported one another and helped them heal transforms lives.
Totally.
So
what was that, B-E-T?
We call it we call ourselves Vet Connect.
Vet Connect. Okay.
And it's a volunteer-led military ministry that focuses on promoting fellowship and a sense of belonging, because there's that common theme. I mean, you and I, Tom, hit it off immediately because of our strict, distant fathers that shaped us in good and bad ways, right?
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
And so bringing that to the table around a theme of military service and figuring out how to care and support, learning about military culture is important. Having a little bit of knowledge about leadership is important, in particular listening skills, but then also understanding your local veteran resources, because you're not there to fix stuff. You're there to love on them, not literally, but care about them, show appreciation, communicate with them. But then when you get in the hot seat and it's too much for you, you need to know where to refer them to. That's the idea behind military ministry. And so I chose in Vanguard Veteran to emphasize employment because of its impact on quality of life, right?
Absolutely.
And how it strengthens our society and our workforce. And I also chose to focus in on building military ministries because how it helps us heal, how it promotes our well-being, and because you make great friends in the process. So it really does help bring you all the way home. And I think some of the most important components.
Wow. You don't have any passion for this, do you?
Yeah, sorry.
Everybody.
I do. It's my life's calling. And, growing up as a Navy kid, being working, 29 years in the military, around 85% men, having a son who was a soldier, married, my first husband was Air Force, second husband's Army. I mean, it's just been a part of my DNA.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to make a difference. And I want to be that Girl Scout that this is funny, but it's true. I'm that Girl Scout at the core of myself who wants to leave the campfire better than how she found it. It's sort of silly because it's so simple, but that's really how my mind thinks. I want to leave the world a better place because of who I am, what I know, and what gifts God gave me.
Now that is not silly at all. In fact, that's another round of applause there. Now I forgot to play this. That's what I was trying to tell you, that if I come back sometimes from the service and that's what I hear, and that's why I don't hear anything. I need people. I need all the things you're talking about, and you're filling a void. I want to say this, that people who study a lot about human needs will get this. You get this, that it's the what do they say? I think they teach it in the Bible too, because through my faith I get this, that about institutions, putting all your or trying to find your happiness in material things and your family. All those things will crumble, including your career. When you go beyond yourself and serve others, you leave a legacy. And this because you're telling us. And everybody just come back and watch her face and just your body language. When you're talking about the things you're doing, you are totally on fire with your emotions, and that's because it's in your gut. I want to mention a couple things here. You know a lot of people in business through the work you're doing, connecting to communities. I just wrote down here a couple words: resilience, leadership, vision, planning, discipline. When I grew in my early career I started at the bottom, but up to CEO, and I was in the chair of the board. These are all skills that we're taught, and we're trying to develop our people in companies to elevate themselves. These are just a small list of skills. And when I think about a few things in my early career, I was with a couple of companies, Kathy, that were really advanced, and they had this thing called personal development plan. So just bear with me. So you get this. So I've interviewed other American military people on my show, and one of the guys, he was in the Air Force. Pardon me, the competitors again, but he told me about how much what his actual education was in the military, and I was blown away. And yet in business, we're trying to develop and find people. I think what you're doing is fabulous. And quite frankly, these personal development plans in this company, they said, okay, Tom, you're at this lower level. We're going to create a ladder for you, and here's all the things you have to do to get to here. Why not have me, if I'm going into the military, I go in, and part of my ladder is you're going to serve in the military, but before you go, let's create a plan. So for what we teach you, these are the transferable skills we're going to develop in you. And let's also use what Kathy's doing, or use some connections. We have connections in the business community, and we're letting them know we have a farm team or a bench of people who they can draw on when you come back. I mean, it should be to me, what you're doing is so amazing. It should be an extension of, you go serve, and then you're developing yourself for your career or whatever.
It's in everybody's best interest to join the veteran champion movement and be a part of the win and take it seriously. Military people aren't looking for a hand out. We're looking for maybe a hand up, and meet us halfway. And again, some things about military culture. We are taught to develop our subordinates. Our people who report to us are the junior people, so that they can take our jobs. And we are also taught that, it's kind of the expectation that you will advance in rank and that you will prepare yourself for the next senior level. And so, we have definitely a get her done kind of attitude that's really helpful, that creates mission focus and productivity, which, veteran hiring done well can generate cost savings. And so some of those things, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit threatening. Sometimes, we communicate pretty directly. My husband's so funny. He would say, he was a commander most of his career, and he'd say, we're not gonna waste good Army oxygen talking about this stuff. We're gonna get her done. I'd be like, okay, dude, that kind of works in the military, but it really doesn't work, outside the military. So, there needs to be some professional and personal development,
but you can
maybe
train,
some polishing, of people. But at the end of the day, these disciplined, tech savvy, resilient people are who you want to be in the workforce, because they can take you to the workforce of tomorrow.
Absolutely.
They can put the new processes in place that are needed in a post-COVID reality. Okay.
Yeah.
They can build the team and become the leaders to manage the transition to automation. I mean, they're really the people you want on your team.
I think you hit the nail on the head on something. I want to show you a little book here, and then we'll move to getting to some last thoughts before we wrap up. The thing about, see, it's almost like the opposite. I almost failed in my career because I was developed in a military culture environment at home. So this is the interesting part, and I think it's the opportunity. You have the military, from what I'm hearing you say and what I've heard from other people coming, or veterans, the education is incredible in many years. However, we add on one more part of development, whether it happens when they come back or whatever, add on that part where they can then, what they say, integrate or adapt into. Because here's what I learned at age 31, and I'm a lot older now, is that command and control doesn't work.
No.
My daughter's 24, millennials, the next gens. No. And my definition of leadership is, leaders' number one job is to create other leaders. You know how to do it.
Love it.
And all you got to do is just speak a different language. And you know what? To all those vets out there, if you're crusty and you're command and control, I shifted my character through coaching. I had a coach. And it was hard. It was hard work, but I changed. I'll tell you right now. I'll give you my secret. And this was the hardest work I've ever done. I changed two things. One, I was coached, and I developed and learned how to be assertive in a positive way.
Nice. Yeah.
And two, I learned how to stop worrying and set boundaries, so I wouldn't be a workaholic. Those two shifts, Kathy, changed the trajectory of and so to all the vets coming back, they're not big shifts. You get a coach, you get some development around you.
Yes.
But here's the thing, nobody's going to hire you unless you want to do it. You've got to want to do it to make a difference.
And it takes investment in time and money, and it is well spent, because guess what? Your relationships are better. And if your relationships are better when you're stressed, then you don't have a tendency to isolate so much. But leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That's what John Maxwell says. And it's not based on authority, which is kind of what we're taught in the military. Sure. Not to say that it's not relational based. It is. It's trust based. It's trust based. Heavily, especially in the combat arena. But when you come out and you're already feeling, a little bit, I've heard it described, a military person feels like they're entering a foreign land with a foreign culture and a foreign language. When you've been out there serving your country for 4 years or 24 years, you come back home and you feel like you're in a foreign land. You don't get it. So what can we do as civilians? I want to help you become a veteran champion. Can I give 2 shout outs real quick?
Yeah.
Because I know you're wrapping up.
Yeah.
First of all, I invite anybody to go to my website, vanguardveteran.com, or email me at Kathy with a K at vanguardveteran.com. If you're an employer, I invite you to take the Veteran Ready Assessment Quiz to give you an idea about what the components are for being a veteran ready employer. And then I'd love to offer you a 30-minute complimentary consultation to see where you are and if I might be able to help you. If you have any interest in building a military ministry, I offer every first Sunday an hour coaching call at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, you can email me at Kathy at vanguardveteran.com. You can connect with me on Facebook at Vanguard Veteran. You can connect with me on my business page, Vanguard Veteran. LinkedIn is my long name down at the bottom there, or it's Vanguard Veteran, my business page on LinkedIn. I post all my stuff there, and I'd love to include you in the Veteran Champion movement, either help you hire better, source better, retain better, or build that military ministry as a volunteer and really, really make a difference in the quality of life of our service members. So I hope to see you first Sunday of every month at what I call Military Ministries Matters. Please reach out to me. And Tom, thanks so much for, this has been really fun. I appreciate it.
It's been fun. Wow, the last little clip will be almost like a little commercial. We'll get all those notes from you, Kathy. We'll put it in the notes of the show when we produce this. One more salute to you. Hold on. I was absolutely blown away when I started reading up of how you've connected ministry, and this is not a religious show or anything like that. But when I was a kid, I wasn't taught how to love, how to be kind to people, all those things. And I wasn't taught my faith. I was baptized, but I denied it. This is the book that I have now that I read every morning, and I have
Me too.
And so I was taught through my struggling through depression that kindness, connection to people, all those things. But this is actually the first step, is loving yourself first. And, that's what you're doing through the ministry. Congratulations on that. So I want to honor you as we wrap up here with an award. You probably knew about this. If you didn't, well, now you know. You see on the screen behind me, there's a TV screen in my studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what that is?
Challenge coin.
Yeah. And of course, what are challenge coins? You should know.
Oh, challenge coins. Oh, they mean so much to you when you're in uniform. Your superior officer, your commander, gives you a challenge coin for good performance. And they're a great attaboy. And if you really honor and respect that supervisor, it just means the world to you. I have a big bag full of them, and so this is going to be great because you truly are Tom Dutta. Did I say that right?
Dutta like butter.
Yeah, you indeed are the quiet warrior, my friend. I salute you for all you've overcome and all that you're teaching us and what you're doing. So a challenge coin from you would be awesome. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So I have 4 leadership words I honor you with. I write these down as you're the guest talking. I don't script it. First one is trailblazer. That's somebody who's going somewhere that hasn't been before. You're blazing a trail with that program. Number 2 is leader. You're born. You have that innate leadership from Girl Scouts or resilience, whatever it is. Really proud of you for that. Number 3 is love. Despite the fact that you have this assertiveness and positivity, and almost like sometimes it can be seen as this strength or armor. When you speak, especially when you open up and you talk about your life and you talk about the veterans, how much you care, everybody, I see love coming through that. And you know this, that the pathway to change for people, it changes through the heart. It's got to be emotion based. So you have that. And the last one is, I'm going to just say that I'm going to call you a thought. They call it thought leadership, but there's a very different kind of leader. And it's when somebody tells stories through the lens of their own experience, and it's unique. So I think, Kathy, we have to just acknowledge your long career in the military and the levels you achieved and what you've done, that only Kathy can teach what she's teaching. And there's only one of you. So definitely a thought leader. So congratulations.
Wow.
You're now a member of the Quiet Warrior Tribe. We'll exchange an address so I can get the coin out to you. And when I receive your book, I'll take a picture somewhere. I've got a few spots in Canada here where we have a presence that represents the military as well.
I'd love that. Thank you.
And
both of them.
Yeah. And so everybody find that true passion and purpose, like you see Kathy done here with everything she's doing, which is amazing. And, find that life that you deserve and live that life the way you desire. Thank you, Kathy, for being here.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca